took in my parents, but they moved my sister and her family into my house behind my back. She demanded the biggest room for herself and threw my things out. Our parents sided with her, so I kicked them all out. I never thought owning my own home would lead to so much drama. 6 months ago, I finally took the plunge and bought a beautiful house with 4 bedrooms, a spacious backyard, and a living room that could comfortably fit all my art supplies and still have room for entertaining. The master bedroom became my sanctuary, a place where I could recharge after long days teaching at the private college or working on commission pieces. I converted the second bedroom into my studio, where natural light poured in through large windows, making it perfect for painting. The remaining 2 bedrooms became guest rooms, though I rarely had overnight visitors. My name is Ashley, and I'm a professional artist. I've been fortunate enough to make a good living selling my paintings and teaching fine arts. My work has been featured in several galleries across the country, and I've built a reputation that allows me to command decent prices for my pieces. Growing up, it was always just me, my parents, and my older sister Tara. We were close, or at least I thought we were. Tara was always the more ambitious one, always talking about her big plans while I quietly pursued my passion for art. When our parents decided to sell their old house, they gave all the money to Tara so she could start her online souvenir shop. It was supposed to be a loan she promised to pay them back once her business took off. Sure enough, Tara's business failed within months. Just like that, our parents were left without a home and without their retirement savings. They started renting an apartment, but it was expensive, and I could tell they were struggling. "Ashley, sweetie," Mom said during one of our weekly dinners, "your father and I have been thinking, that house of yours has so much extra space." I knew where this was going. "Are you asking to move in with me?" Dad cleared his throat. "We wouldn't ask if we had other options. The rent is killing us." I didn't hesitate. "Of course, you can stay with me. You can have the larger guest room." They moved in the following weekend. I didn't mind supporting them. I was in a position to do so. I covered the mortgage, utilities, and groceries without complaint. They were my parents, after all, and they'd supported me throughout my childhood and art school. It felt good to be able to give back. Life settled into a comfortable routine. I taught my classes 3 days a week, worked in my studio, and occasionally traveled for exhibitions. My parents kept to themselves mostly, watching TV in their room or taking walks around the neighborhood. Last month, I had a major exhibition in Colorado. It was a big opportunity, a solo show at a prestigious gallery that could open doors to new collectors. I carefully selected my best pieces, packed them with extreme care, and flew out for the week-long event. The exhibition exceeded my expectations. I sold several paintings, made connections with gallery owners interested in featuring my work, and even got approached about a potential book showcasing my artistic journey. I flew home feeling accomplished and excited about the future. What I didn't expect was to open my front door and find a pile of suitcases in my living room, or to see my sister Tara sitting on my couch with her husband Mike and their 4-year-old son Noah. "What's going on?" I asked, setting down my carry-on. "Why are there suitcases in my living room?" "Well," Mom said, wringing her hands, "Tara and Mike are having some difficulties right now. Their business went bankrupt, and they lost their apartment. They have nowhere to go." I looked at Tara, who avoided my gaze. Mike was scrolling through his phone, seemingly uninterested in the conversation. Noah was playing with toys on my carpet, toys I'd never seen before. "So you let them move in?" Without asking me, I tried to keep my voice calm. "These aren't strangers, Ashley," Mom said firmly. "Tara is your sister. Family helps family during difficult times. I understand that, but you should have called me first." Tara finally spoke up. "I told Mom to call you, but she said you'd be fine with it." Mom shot her a look before turning back to me. "It's just for a couple of months, until they get back on their feet. They'll find jobs in their own place in no time." I took a deep breath. I wasn't heartless. My nephew was sitting right there, and I couldn't bear the thought of him not having a roof over his head. "Fine," I said. "They can stay in the second guest room for 2 months. "Thank you, Ashley," Tara exclaimed, suddenly animated. "You're the best sister ever." I nodded and headed to my room, pulling my suitcase behind me. As I passed the kitchen, I noticed the empty fridge and cabinets. Clearly, no one had bothered to go grocery shopping while I was away. The next few weeks with Tara, Mike, and Noah in my house were eye-opening. I'd expected them to be actively looking for jobs and their own place to live. I'd expected them to contribute in some way, maybe help with chores or occasionally buy groceries. I couldn't have been more wrong. Every day, I'd come home from teaching to find Tara and Mike lounging on my couch, watching TV while dishes piled up in the sink. Noah would be playing with toys scattered across my once immaculate living room. The first few times, I bit my tongue. They were going through a tough time after all. But then the bills started coming in. "What the hell?" I muttered, staring at my utility bill. It had nearly tripled since they moved in. Long showers, lights left on all day, constant TV and video games, it all added up. And of course, I was footing the entire bill. "Tara," I said one evening, handing her the paper, "have you seen this?" She glanced at it briefly. "Yeah. Kids use a lot of water. What can you do?" Then she went back to scrolling through her phone. "You could help pay for it," I suggested, trying to keep my tone light. Mike looked up from his laptop. "We're broke, remember? That's why we're here." "But you're not even looking for jobs," I pointed out. "You're both home all day." "We're exploring options online," Tara said defensively. "We're not going to settle for minimum wage jobs." I wanted to remind them that beggars can't be choosers, but instead I just walked away. I could afford the bills, technically, but that wasn't the point. The entitlement was what bothered me. The grocery situation was even worse. I'd come home to find the food I'd bought for the week already gone, with nothing to show for it except empty wrappers and dirty dishes. When I'd ask about it, I'd get shrugs or vague promises to replace things next time. That next time never came. 2 months came and went with no sign of Tara's family preparing to leave. Every time I brought it up, there was a new excuse. The job market was tough. They needed to save up for first and last month's rent. Noah was getting settled in his new preschool nearby. The excuses were endless. Then came the day that pushed me over the edge. I had been feeling under the weather for a few days but still had to go to work. I desperately needed rest, so I came home early, looking forward to a quiet afternoon in my bedroom. As I parked in the driveway, I realized something felt off. The curtains to my studio were open, which I never left that way. I rushed inside and heard noises coming from upstairs. Following the sounds, I reached the door of my studio to find Tara and Mike manhandling my paintings. They had stacked several against the wall and were in the process of moving my easel. "What are you doing?" I demanded, my voice rising with panic. Mike jumped, startled, and in the process, knocked over one of my recently completed pieces, an oil painting that had taken me weeks to finish. "Careful." I rushed forward to pick it up, checking for damage. "We're just reorganizing," Tara said casually. "This room is bigger than ours, and we need more space now that Noah's getting bigger." "This is my studio," I said slowly, trying to contain my anger. "These are my livelihood. You can't just move them." "It's not like you can't paint somewhere else," Mike said, rolling his eyes. "The garage has plenty of space." As he walked past a stack of my canvases, he tripped slightly and, to my horror, kicked at them in frustration. "This junk is everywhere," he muttered. "Take all this stuff to the garage," Tara instructed him, as if she owned the place. "We need to make room for our bed and Noah's toys." That was it. Something inside me snapped. "Stop, right now," I shouted, positioning myself between them and my artwork. "These paintings aren't junk. They're my work, and some of them are already sold to clients. The garage has humidity issues that would ruin the canvases. And more importantly, this is my studio in my house." Tara crossed her arms. "Don't be so selfish, Ashley. We can't all cram into that tiny guest room anymore. Noah needs his own space." "Then find your own place like you promised 2 months ago," I retorted. "You said it would be temporary." "Plans change," she said with a shrug. "We need a calm, comfortable environment to properly job hunt. That takes time." "Put everything back exactly as it was," I said firmly, "and start looking for another place to live immediately." Tara's face hardened. "Fine. Be that way." She stormed out, pulling Mike along with her. They retreated to their room with Noah, slamming the door so hard it shook the walls. That evening, Mom brought them dinner on trays. I watched from the kitchen as she knocked gently on their door, speaking to them in soothing tones like they were the ones who had been wronged. When my parents finally joined me at the dinner table, the tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. "Tara doesn't deserve to be treated like that," Mom said, breaking the silence. "She's going through a difficult time." "And I'm not?" I asked incredulously. "I'm the one paying for everything while you all live here for free." Mom's eyes flashed with anger. "Don't you dare throw that in our faces. We're family." "I'm not throwing anything in anyone's face," I replied, struggling to stay calm. "But this is still my house, and everyone living here needs to respect my rules and my space." Neither of my parents finished their dinner. They both got up and left for their room without another word, leaving me alone at the table I had bought, in the house I was paying for, feeling like an outsider in my own home. The days following our argument were tense. Tara and Mike barely acknowledged me, while my parents acted like I was the villain in this story. Noah was the only one who still smiled at me, and even that made me feel guilty. None of this was his fault. Then I got sick, really sick. A nasty flu knocked me off my feet for a week, forcing me to cancel my classes and stay home. I thought maybe this would give me a chance to see what my sister and her husband actually did all day while I was at work. The answer? Absolutely nothing. Not once did they leave the house to look for work. Not once. On the 4th day of my illness, I dragged myself to the kitchen for some tea, only to find a sink full of dirty dishes and empty takeout containers scattered across the counter. I had to clear a space just to boil water. "Tara," I called weakly from the bottom of the stairs, "can you come down for a minute?" She appeared at the top, looking annoyed at the interruption. "What? I'm in the middle of something." "Are you or Mike looking for jobs at all?" I asked directly. Her expression hardened. "That's none of your business." "It absolutely is my business when you're living in my house," I countered, my voice hoarse from my sore throat. "You were supposed to move out weeks ago." "We're looking for decent positions with good salaries," she said defensively. "We're not going to waste time on minimum wage jobs that won't even cover rent." "You need to start somewhere," I insisted. "You can't just." "We're not leaving," Mike interrupted, appearing behind Tara. "We're comfortable here." I stared at them in disbelief. This was supposed to be temporary. Mike smirked. "I actually talked to a lawyer buddy of mine. Did you know you can't legally kick out family members, especially ones with a small child? It's called established residency." I looked to my parents, who had emerged from their room at the sound of our raised voices. To my horror, they both nodded in agreement. "Tara's right, Ashley," Mom said firmly. "You can't just throw your sister and her family out on the street. If you try, we'll all go to court." I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. My own family was threatening to sue me over a house I bought, that I paid for, where they all lived for free. I was too shocked and too sick to argue further. I retreated to my room, my tea forgotten, and collapsed into bed. As I lay there staring at the ceiling, a plan began to form in my mind. If they wanted to play hardball, I could too. I waited until the following weekend. My parents mentioned they were taking Tara, Mike, and Noah shopping at the outlet mall an hour away. One of their many outings using my gas and probably my credit card. I feigned still being too sick to join them. The moment their car disappeared down the street, I sprang into action. I called Jack, a locksmith I knew through a former student. While waiting, I began gathering my family's belongings. I started with Tara and Mike's room, stuffing their clothes into their suitcases with little concern for neatness. I collected Noah's toys more carefully, making sure his favorite teddy bear was easily accessible. Then I moved on to my parents' room, packing their essentials with a strange detachment. Jack arrived promptly and didn't ask questions when I explained I needed all the locks changed immediately. He was efficient, replacing the front door deadbolt, the back door lock, and even the side entrance to the garage. I thanked him, paid him extra for the rush job, and continued my mission. I dragged all the packed suitcases and boxes to the front yard, arranging them neatly on the lawn. The whole time, I kept thinking about Noah. He was innocent in all this, and yet he'd be affected by what I was doing. But I couldn't let my sister and her husband take advantage of me forever. If I gave in now, they'd never leave. 3 hours later, I heard cars pulling into the driveway. I watched through the window as confusion spread across their faces at the sight of their belongings on the lawn. Then realization dawned. Tara was the first to reach the front door, yanking on the handle before trying her key, which no longer worked. She banged on the door furiously. "Ashley, open this door right now," she screamed. I steeled myself and opened the door just wide enough to speak through the gap, keeping the chain on. "Take your things and leave," I said calmly. "You can't do this," Mike shouted, pushing against the door. "This is illegal." "Actually, it's my house," I replied, "and you've overstayed your welcome by months." My father tried to reason with me. "Ashley, honey, think about what you're doing. Where are we supposed to go?" "You should have thought about that before threatening to take me to court," I said, my voice breaking slightly. "I've supported all of you without complaint. I paid all the bills, I bought all the food, and this is how you repay me?" Noah started crying, confused and frightened by all the shouting. That nearly broke my resolve, but I held firm. "I'll give you an hour to collect your things," I said. "After that, I'm calling the police to report trespassers on my property." Mike kicked the door hard, making me jump back. "You'll regret this," he threatened. For the next hour, I watched through various windows as they loaded their belongings into their cars, cursing and shouting the entire time. Tara took photos of the scene with her phone, which should have concerned me, but I was too numb to care. Eventually, they drove away, my parents following Tara's car. The sudden silence in the house was deafening. The next morning, I woke to my phone exploding with notifications. Tara had posted a long, emotionally manipulative story on Facebook, complete with photos of their belongings on my lawn and Noah crying on my front porch. She described me as heartless and selfish, claiming I had thrown them out without warning after promising they could stay. Comments flooded in, mostly from extended family and mutual friends taking Tara's side, expressing outrage at my cruelty. Few bothered to ask for my version of events. I considered responding with the full story but decided against it. Instead, I posted a single comment. "Before judging me, ask yourselves if you'd be willing to take in Tara's family. My door is always open to those who actually need help, not those who refuse to help themselves." Surprisingly, my father's cousin, Aunt Marie, who had been the most vocal in condemning me on social media, calling me heartless, cruel, and a disgrace to the family, suddenly posted that she would take Tara and her family in. "Family helps family," she wrote self-righteously. "I'll show Ashley what real compassion looks like." I almost called to warn her what she was getting herself into but decided against it. She'd made her point publicly, now she could deal with the consequences privately. A month passed, and the drama gradually died down. Then I got an unexpected call from my cousin Jenna. "Ashley, it's Jenna. Got a minute?" Jenna was Dad's cousin's daughter, and we'd always been friendly though not especially close. She hadn't commented on any of Tara's posts, which I'd appreciated. "Sure," I said cautiously. "What's up?" "I thought you should know. Aunt Marie kicked Tara and Mike out yesterday. The police were involved." I sat down heavily on my couch. "What happened?" "The same thing that happened with you, basically," Jenna said with a sigh. "They moved in with her after you kicked them out. She felt sorry for them because of Noah. But they did nothing to help around the house, even though Aunt Marie specifically took them in because she needed help with some repairs. Let me guess, they didn't pay for anything either?" "Nope. And when Aunt Marie got hit with a massive utility bill and asked them to contribute, Tara told her they were staying for free whether she liked it or not. Sound familiar?" I couldn't help but laugh, though there was no humor in it. "What about my parents?" "They're staying with Tara and Mike at some motel for now. I think your dad and mom both got jobs at the grocery store down the street from there." The news hit me harder than I expected. My parents working at a grocery store in their 60s? Despite everything, it pained me to think of them struggling. Weeks turned into months. Spring arrived, bringing with it new gallery opportunities and a fresh outlook. I started dating again, something I hadn't had energy for while dealing with my family situation. I met Daniel at one of my exhibitions. He was there with his 10-year-old daughter Emma, who apparently loved art and had dragged her father to the gallery. Daniel was divorced, raising Emma primarily on his own, and worked as an architect. We connected immediately over our love of visual aesthetics and the challenges of our creative fields. Our first few dates were wonderful. He was respectful, attentive, and genuine. Qualities I hadn't realized were so rare until I experienced them. Emma was bright and well-mannered, asking thoughtful questions about my paintings when Daniel brought her along to one of our coffee dates. After a month of dating, I invited them both over for dinner. I gave them a tour of the house, ending with my studio, where Emma's eyes lit up at the sight of the canvases and art supplies. "This is amazing," she whispered, her fingers hovering over a palette of oils without touching. "Would you like to try?" I offered, setting up a small canvas for her. While Emma painted, Daniel and I talked in the kitchen as I prepared dinner. "This is a beautiful home," he said, helping me chop vegetables. "It's so peaceful." I hesitated, then decided to be honest. It hasn't always been. I told him the whole story, my parents moving in, then Tara's family, the increasing tensions, and finally the dramatic eviction. I expected judgment or at least surprise, but Daniel just nodded thoughtfully. "Family can be complicated," he said. "After my divorce, my ex-wife's parents stopped speaking to me, even though they'd been like second parents to me for years. It hurt Emma more than anyone. His understanding meant more than he knew. For so long, I'd been made to feel like the villain in my own story. Our relationship progressed naturally. Daniel and Emma became regular fixtures in my life. When they visited, they always cleaned up after themselves, respected my space, and followed the basic rules of courtesy that my own family had ignored. 6 months after the eviction incident, I ran into my mother at the supermarket. It was awkward and tense, but not hostile. "You look well," she said stiffly. "So do you," I replied, noticing she seemed tired but healthy. "How's Dad?" "Managing. We both work full-time now." "And Tara?" Mom's expression hardened slightly. "They found an apartment. Mike's working construction and Tara's at a call center. Noah starts kindergarten next month." I nodded, surprised at the twinge of satisfaction I felt knowing they were finally supporting themselves. "That's good." We didn't say much else, but later that night, Mom texted me, "We should have respected your boundaries." "I'm sorry we didn't." It wasn't a full apology, but it was something. I replied simply, "Thank you for saying that." We haven't fully reconciled, but that brief exchange opened a door that had seemed permanently closed. We text occasionally now, superficial messages about the weather or a show she watched, but it's a start. As for Tara, I haven't spoken to her directly. I doubt we'll ever have the same relationship we once had, but I've made peace with that. Some family ties are worth fighting for. Others need to be loosened for everyone's well-being. Last week, Daniel mentioned that his lease is ending soon. "I've been thinking," he said hesitantly as we sat on my porch swing after Emma had gone to bed in the guest room. "This house has plenty of space, and Emma loves being here. Are you asking to move in?" I asked, smiling. "Maybe," he said, "but only if it feels right for all of us. No pressure." I leaned against his shoulder, watching the sunset paint the sky in colors I could never fully capture on canvas. I'd like that, but I do have some rules. He left. I wouldn't expect anything less. Unlike my family, Daniel and Emma understand that sharing a space means sharing responsibilities. They don't take my generosity for granted or assume entitlement to what's mine. They ask before using something important to me and contribute without being prompted. This morning, I woke up to find Emma had made breakfast for all of us, slightly burnt toast and 2 strong coffee, but made with love and consideration. Daniel was already cleaning up after her, quietly praising her efforts. I watched them from the doorway, feeling a contentment I hadn't experienced in a long time. My home is peaceful again, filled with respect and genuine care rather than obligation and resentment. Sometimes I still feel a pang of guilt about Noah, caught in the middle of adult conflicts. I've sent him birthday and Christmas presents through my mother, hoping he knows his Aunt Ashley still cares about him. Maybe someday, when he's older, we can have a relationship independent of the drama between me and his parents.